know, I'm starting to feel a little old when Marco Rubio's the senior senator from Florida. But it'll be a blast to watch it work, and it is a joy to be here to support a really great man. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody what Marco said, which is that we need to keep our thoughts and prayers for our fellow Americans that are in the Northeast that are suffering through what was a tragic storm. Now, in Florida in 2005 and 2004, we knew something about storms. We had 8 hurricanes and 4 tropical storms, probably $100 billion of lost property damages. We had millions of people that were out of power, and we had the support of a lot of people that right now are suffering. And so I hope that you all will do what you can to help your fellow man in New Jersey and New York and all these places that were so helpful to us just 6 years ago. Their job right, the federal government part works out pretty good. So I hope that this recovery happens quick for the jump-starting of our economy, but more importantly than that, we need to have a jump-started economy with new policies, with new leadership in Washington, D.C. We need a man who has practical business experience, who has worked in many ways as a problem solver in the private sector, in saving the Winter Olympics, as governor of the great state of Massachusetts. Mitt Romney is made for this job as President of the United States, to bring people together to begin to solve the problems that we face. Job one on day one will be to restore sustained economic growth for our country. It will lift the spirits of America if people believe that they can invest in their own dreams, that there's the chance that they can get an education and be able to get a job, that they can get the job maybe that they lost 2 years ago. It will lift our spirits, and the animal spirits of America will come back as well, and we'll be able to take care of ourselves rather than getting in line and looking for a handout from some government entity. That's not the America that we know. Imagine a country that actually trusts the private sector to create the jobs of the future. Imagine a country that says, yes, we need to have fair regulation that's transparent, but we cannot over-regulate economic activity because in a competitive world, those jobs go elsewhere. Imagine a leader like Mitt Romney that will restore confidence in the greatness of this country. I imagine it each and every day, and that's why I'm campaigning as hard as I can for the guy. So I hope you'll pray for our next president. I hope that you will get 10 people that may not be as committed as you are to be able to get them to commit to vote either early or on election day, the old-fashioned way. I hope that you get those 10 that you've gotten to commit to get 10 other people to do the same thing. And if you do your part, we will have a glorious election night next Tuesday. So with that, without further ado, with great pride, with great Florida pride, I give you the next President of the United States, Mitt Romney.
Thank you. Well, we got all sorts of messages going on this morning. Thank you. What an honor it is to be here with these great individuals. You know that? Governor Jeb Bush, what a hero. Don't you love that man? And your Senator Marco Rubio, the whole world watches that man, extraordinary person. And thank you for coming together with your thoughts and prayers on behalf of his daughter, Amanda. She is well. She's at home. We're delighted, and she'll be celebrating Halloween tonight. So thank you for being with her. And Connie Mack, a great tradition a great leader, and the next U.S. Senator from Florida. You got to make that happen. This is quite a time for the country. As you know, we're going through trauma in a major part of the country, a kind of trauma you've experienced here in Florida more than once. And it's interesting to see how people come together in a circumstance like this. We've seen folks from all over the country step forward and offer contributions. You see up on our screens, way to give to the Red Cross. People are doing that all over America, gathering their support in any way they can to help the people that have been subjected to this tragedy. And so please, if you have an extra dollar or two, send them along and keep the people who have been in harm's way, who've been damaged either personally or through their property, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. We love all of our fellow citizens. We come together in times like this, and we want to make sure that they have a speedy and quick recovery from their financial and, in many cases, personal loss. Now, people coming together is what's also going to happen, I believe. Describe our respective visions for the country. My view is pretty straightforward, and that is I believe that this is a time for America to take a different course, that this should be a turning point for our country. And I say that because I look at where we are, and with 23 million Americans, you think about that. These are real people. These are folks trying to put food on the table. 23 million people struggling to find a good job. This is something that requires, in my view, a different path than we've been on. Likewise, we have half our kids coming out of college who can't find work. This hasn't happened before in our history. We're at a 30-year low in new business formations. This is a real challenge for a nation that normally grows through innovation and risk-taking and startups of all kinds. We also have 1 out of 6 people living in poverty. We need to take a new course. We have 47 million people on food stamps. Think of that. Richest country in the history of the earth, largest economy in the world, and yet 47 million people need food stamps. So I believe that this is the year for us to take a different course. I will bring real change and real reform in a presidency. And there are 5 parts to that. And I hope you understand what they are. If you don't, let me just remind you. Number 1, I really do believe that we were given kind of an ace in the hole. And that is that someone learned how to drill in the earth, not just vertically, but horizontally, and then tap into pockets of oil and gas. And as a result, we have huge new resources in natural gas and oil. And so number 1 for me is take full advantage of our oil, our coal, our gas, our nuclear, and our renewables. And that creates, by the way, a lot of jobs in the energy states, of course, but it also creates a lot of jobs. It's good for us to be able to trade with other nations, particularly in Latin America. And we have some real advantages in trading with Latin America. Many of our citizens have roots there. We speak the language in many corners of our nation. The time zone, of course, is friendly for us. And you know, Latin America's economy is almost as large as that of China. There's a large middle class and growing middle class. This is a big opportunity for us to trade and to expand the sales of our goods and services in Latin America. But by the way, if nations cheat, and China has cheated over the years, that has to stop. We can't let them steal our jobs with unfair trade practices. Number 1 is energy. Number 2 is trade. Number 3, we've got to make sure our people are getting the skills they need to succeed. And that's not only training programs for our current workers, but also we've got to make sure that our schools stop being at the states across this country. 1, make sure that schools are graded so parents can tell which schools are succeeding and which aren't. And number 2, the federal dollars that we give to states and localities, there are 2 big buckets. One is called Title I, the other is called IDEA money. Those dollars I'm going to have funneled the student so that if a child wants to go to a different school, or his or her parents do, they have the capacity to do that. Number four, if we're going to deal with the real problems America has and get entrepreneurs to start businesses and and big companies to decide to expand in America and put their dollars here, they're going to have to be convinced that we're not on the road to Greece. Because if they think America is headed for economic crisis, they're not going to risk their life savings or risk their capital to build in America and invest in America. And that's one reason why it's so critical for us to finally, you all understand that to have an economy work and businesses to work and people to be able to hire, that there have to be regulations and laws. You couldn't have people opening up a bank in their backyard and taking money from their neighbor and sending it to someone else. I mean, it'd be a mess. So you got to have laws and regulations. But you also have to make sure the regulations are up to date and modern, and they're not designed to be so burdensome that they crush certain competitors. And what's happened over time is that these regulations, we can get them. And one of our challenges right now is the taxes we charge small business and big business is a tax rate of 35%. Now, that's just the income tax. That's just the income tax they pay. I was with an entrepreneur in St. Louis who has an electronics business, 4 employees. And he said that he and his son calculated how much they spend in taxes every year of what they earn in their business. And he took the income tax. That keeps us from creating jobs. By the way, do you know what Canada's done? Instead of a 35% tax on businesses, they've cut it to 15%. Why? Why? They've done that. And by the way, the Europeans have done it. They've lowered their tax rate in many cases down to an average of about 25%. They realize we want businesses here because if there are businesses here, more people have jobs. If more people have jobs, they can pay taxes and the country's better off. Education systems for adults and for young people. Number 4, balancing the budget. And number 5, being a real champion as a nation of small business. For those things to happen, it's going to require something that Washington talks about but hasn't done in a long, long time. And that is truly reaching across the aisle and finding good Democrats and good Republicans that will come together and find common ground and work in the interest of the American people, not just in the interest of politics. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. Look, I didn't just slow down the rate of spending. We actually cut spending in our state. And then we cut taxes as well. We made our state a little more business friendly. And by the way, we were able to get to a point where a $3 billion budget gap in my first year turned into a $2 billion rainy day fund by the time I left. This can happen. It has to happen in Washington. We've got to come together. We're a can-do, hard-working, optimistic, innovative, creative people. And we need leaders who draw on those skills and those propensities to get this country going again. I have to tell you one of my favorite stories I've been telling across the country. I was serving as a leader in the Boy Scouts of America. There's some scouters here, all right? And I was at the end of a big Formica table next to the American flag, took their flag and put it on the space shuttle. He said, you can't imagine how proud the boys were to be in their homerooms at school, watching the TV set, watching the shuttle Challenger launch into the air, and then they saw it explode on the TV screen. And he said, he waited a couple of weeks, and then he called NASA and said, have you found any remnant of our flag? And they had not. And so he called every week, month after month, nothing. Finally, he stopped calling, and he said, that's it on the flagpole next to Mr. Romney at the end of the table. And so I looked at that flag, and I reached over and grabbed it and pulled it out, and it was as if electricity was running through my arm, because I thought about the heroes in our space program, the people who put themselves in harm's way out of a desire to expand learning and innovation. For us, it seems to be part of the American character that we look beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. Were our veterans, please raise your hands and be recognized, and members of the armed forces. scrimping and saving in order to make sure they have a good meal on the table at the end of the day for their children. I think of the moms and dads who have two jobs right now, or one has a day job and one has a night job. They hardly see each other. And why? So they can buy the clothes for their kids that won't make their kids stand out at school. I think of all the parents at Christmas time last year and probably this year who were saying to each other, let's not exchange gifts so we have plenty to give to our kids. Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. I'm convinced that's true, you guys. Clear eyes here in Florida, full hearts. We can't lose. We're going to take back America. We're going to keep it strong. We're going to overcome our challenges and keep America the hope of the earth. I need your vote on November 6th. Get out and vote early. I want to thank you.